it was indeed very refreshing. And I must say that Professor Gautam has been very wise in not concentrating on the paper that he has brought, rather than address the issues that are live among the academics and the students. And once again, thanks a lot for bringing Dayaji to this philosophy community. All of us almost felt that Dayaji is with us, bringing the self-reflective nature of philosophy, which Dayaji always underscored. And remember that there wouldn't be any other community of academics other than philosophers who would always say that if you want to tribute me, then provide me criticisms, critique me, and that is the way, the best way that you can tribute. Once again, thanks a lot, Professor Gautam, for bringing such refreshing thoughts to this crowd. And may I have the pleasure to invite the next speaker, Professor Jatashankar, to deliver the K. Sachidanandamurthy Endowment Lecture. Over to Professor Shankar.
Respected Chairperson, Professor Sri Kalaji, learned co-speakers of this session, and fellow philosophers in the hall. At the outset, I must thank the office bearers of IPC, and especially Professor Panneer Selvam Saab, who has given me a chance to read some new books which I had not read earlier, in order to complete my homework which was allotted to me last year. But I confess at the outset that I was a poor home worker, and in my school days also, I did very often I could not complete my homework, and I was punished for that. And that has happened in this case as well, because this homework was allotted to me and I did it when the time was almost over. And that is why it is not up to my own satisfaction. I don't know how dissatisfied my other friends may be. But still, I have tried to understand. And one thing more, I was not lucky like Professor Gautam and Dr. Dave Sahab, who had to speak on such issues which they had direct contact with, because Professor Gautam already he said that he was in direct contact with Dayaji, and I was not fortunate to be in direct contact with the great Professor K.S. Murthy Sahab. And this was a task allotted to me, and that is why I chose the easiest task, easiest way of presenting out of his vast literature produced by him. I chose to say a few words on a book written by him named Reason and Revelation in Advaita Vedanta. Advaita Vedanta, I have read a little of it, and that was easiest for me, and therefore I have taken 3-4 points on which I will say something. And really, I tell you, these points are like geometrical points which are almost invisible, very small, but still they are points. So, instead of presenting something, I will read what I have written in order to save some time. The chair is worried of it. So I read it. The article is dedicated to great scholar of our times, Professor K. Satchidananda Murthy, and it is being presented in his memory. Writings of Professor Murthy include various issues of philosophy, but this paper is centered around his book, Revelation and Reason in Advaita Vedanta. See, one thing I wish to point out, that the name of the book is Revelation and Reason in Advaita Vedanta, and the title of my article, this small piece of writing, is Role of Reason and Revelation in Advaita Vedanta. So the order of these words is changed. He has written on revelation and reason, and I have tried to understand it in this sequence, role of reason and revelation in Advaita Vedanta, and certainly with a purpose, that to my understanding, the role of reason is more important than the role of revelation in Advaita Vedanta, at least of Shankaracharya. That is why I wanted to indicate in this small article that to my understanding, reason has played more important role than revelation in Shankar's philosophy at least. I'm not using it in wider sense of Advaita Vedanta, because many acharyas, post-Shankarites and pre-Shankarites, they might have differed on this point. So, this paper is centered around his book, Revelation and Reason in Advaita Vedanta, reprinted by Motilal Banarsi Das in 1974, and first edition of the book was published in by Andhra University and Columbia University Press in 1959. The problem raised by Professor Murthy in his book is well known to the students and scholars of Vedanta philosophy, and different approaches have been made to this issue by various contemporary scholars. The author of this article doesn't claim to have comprehended entire content of this book, because really that book is very comprehensive and very deep, and it was not possible for me to comprehend entire thing, because for two reasons. Some parts of this book appear to be out of the area of interest of the article writer, and I think I have tried to conceal my weakness by saying this word, but still I have to do something. This small article is not a complete study and discussion on the issue involved, and such permission, this permission also I have sought from Professor Murthy. This permission has been granted by Professor Murthy himself when he says that no treatment of any subject can ever be complete. That is what he has written in his book mentioned above. So this treatment is now also is not complete. That is what I want to say. Main contention of this paper is to decipher the role of reason and revelation in the philosophy of Shankaracharya. And this article is divided into 4 points: nature of reason, nature of revelation, relation between the two, and the last is the incompleteness of the two in Shankara's philosophy. These are 4 small points on which I have tried to concentrate. The first point, reason is popularly divided into pure reason, practical reason, and so many other divisions. The term reason is present, the term reason in present context refers to the pure reason, and the function of this reason is to help in deciding the real contextual meaning of the text under discussion. Its importance can't be undermined because unless it functions properly, no meaningful discourse is possible. The philosophy of Shankaracharya has given sufficient space to reason. A famous slok is well accepted in Advaita tradition, which says, Yasya nasti swayam prajna shastram tasya karoti kim lochanabhyam vihinasya darpanah kim karishyati. Which means the one who does not have his or her own power of reasoning gets nothing from the scriptures, as a mirror cannot help a person to see who has no eyes. So reason has its own place and its own role, not only in Advaita Vedanta, but everywhere, in other contexts also as well. So this fact is evident in Sharirak Bhashya of Brahma Sutra, where the meaning of Shastra is believed to be coming out of Samanvaya, Tattu Samanvayat. And this Samanvaya is arrived at by reason, with the help of reason. And I remind the arguments developed by Acharya Shankar while giving a detailed commentary on the fourth sutra, Tattu Samanvayat, where he tries to make us understand how this Samanvaya gives the real meaning of Shastra. And here, Tarka or reasoning has helped us. Further, entire Tarkpad is dedicated to discursive reasoning, and this chapter of Sharirak Bhashya helps the reader to understand the real nature of self, to make an attempt to understand the real nature, because I have not understood the real nature as yet, real nature of self. That is, to understand the real nature of self, that is not other than the Brahman. It is true that reason is not accepted as the supreme source of knowledge of the non-duality of Atman and Brahman, but it helps the person who has a Brahma Jigyasa to a large extent. It helps the Jigyasu to a large extent. Professor Murthy writes in his above mentioned book, I quote, for example, the Advaitin uses the word Brahman, Maya, etc. Now, how are these words used by him? What sort of factual revelation have they got? He raises certain questions. What sort of examples does he give to make an inroad into the problem? Answers to these questions will be provided by examining the words in as many contexts as possible and finding their language settings. Clarification of the language structure of a philosophy in this way will reveal its logical structure or logic. Then we can find whether the various statements made by it are consistent, at least in its own linguistic settings, unquote. So, there can be different methods of deciding the meaning, and with the help of logic, reasoning. That is what Professor Murthy wants to say in this passage. The passage quoted above indicates that the meaning of a word depends on, or at least needs, the help of a system of reasoning by which the meaning of the word is clarified. It also indicates that this applied logic may have as many shades as the language itself. Shankaracharya in his Bhashya has simply used such logic as and when required by the scripture being interpreted. Here, on this point, I partially fail to agree with those whom Professor Murthy mentions as considering Advaita Vedanta as a religion along with a philosophic system. In the beginning, in the preface, Professor Murthy has written, there are some who believe that Advaita Vedanta is a religion. And this is just a point of linguistic discussion that religion, usually we believe that religion has a very narrow scope, and that is why I have written Advaita Vedanta cannot be called religion in that sense. Even if religion is translated as dharma, even then Advaita Vedanta is not religion because it is moksha shastra, not dharma shastra. Dharma shastra differs from moksha shastra. Anyway, religion fundamentally depends on faith in the scripture. In the process of realizing the non-duality of Atman and Brahman, manana, sravana, manana, nididhyasana, manana, the logical understanding is a necessary step, and therefore it goes beyond the limits of faith. So, the Advaita Vedanta of Shankaracharya cannot be classified under religion by any definition thereof. However, after clear knowledge of the scripture, one is expected to live accordingly in this way, and it may be called a mode of life, but not religion in its strict sense. It may be a mode of life. I can live as a sannyasi. That is possible. Today, Professor Ramarao Pappu Sahab, he said this is an attire of sannyasi. So I can live in that way, in that mode of life, but that is not change of religion or something of this type, at least in a strict sense. Professor Murthy has discussed in long details the place of reason in different systems of Indian philosophy along with Advaita Vedanta. But that discussion cannot be comprehended in this small paper. Professor Murthy has given an exhaustive treatment to the nature of reason. However, its role in Advaita Vedanta is very limited. Certainly, it helps us in resolving the inner conflict of the meaning of Shastra, but that is not the sole purpose of Advaita Vedanta. There is a long journey ahead. Now I come to second point, what is nature of revelation. Professor Murthy, in the part 2 of second book of Revelation and Reason and Advaita Vedanta, he has divided this book in two parts. Two books first, book 1 and book 2, and then each book is again divided in two parts, part 1 and part 2. So there are two books and 4 parts, but the book is one. So, Professor Murthy, in the part 2 of the second book of Revelation and Reason in Advaita Vedanta, starts chapter 1 with a quote from Bhagavad Gita, chapter 15, verse 15, where Krishna declares that I am the author of Vedanta. Exceeded to finish in 2 minutes. I thought I am brief, and in that way I am a witty person, but I am not neither witty nor no. I usually conceal my weakness by quoting Shakespeare, who says, brevity is soul of wit, so I shall be brief, but I could not even do that today. Anyway, he quotes Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna says, I am the author of Vedanta. So, revelation and the issue regarding yes, the sloka, one part of that sloka is Vedanta Krit Veda Videva Chaham. So, he is Vedanta Krit also. He has created this, this scripture. That is how Krishna has claimed. There is a popular discussion whether the scriptures, the Shruti is Paurusheya or Apaurusheya, and Professor Murthy has discussed this issue at large, but I have not even written that long discussion because it was not possible for me to include it in 4 pages and present in 15 minutes. So I have left that part. Professor Murthy has also discussed the issue whether Shruti, revelations, are eternal or they are born in time space. This issue has also been discussed there. And he has clearly discussed that on this issue, I am with Nyaya system. So he accepts that Shastra is Paurusheya, and whoever may be the creator of that Shastra, but he denies Mimamsa, the opinion of Mimamsa school. Yes, the third part, luckily, is the relation between the two, and I have understood this relation as a relation of cooperation. Reason and revelation both they cooperate with each other in making it possible to reach our goal, at least in Shankara's philosophy. And the fourth part, in the fourth part I have discussed that both reason and revelation, they are necessary conditions, but none of the two, neither exclusively nor inclusively, they are not sufficient. They are necessary, both they are necessary, but they are not sufficient for the realization of the non-duality of Atman and Brahman. So, the fourth point is the limitations of these, the limits of these two, and that is what has been discussed in the fourth part. And the conclusion, again I have borrowed from a great philosopher of Allahabad School of Philosophy, Professor A.C. Mukherjee, in his book, The Nature of Self, where he says that it is above the known and beyond the unknown, So it is neither unknowable nor it is known. In the same way, I have tried to put the same phrase in this way. The conclusion of this humble attempt to understand the problem undertaken would be as follows. Realization of non-duality of Atman and Brahman is beyond the reign of reason and above the revealed Shrutis. For this purpose, both reason and revelation are necessary but not sufficient. Thank you. Thank you.
Extremely sorry that we could not give you ample time. We realize that we have very senior professors who have immensely worked on the particular areas in which they have spoken. But nevertheless, I'm trying to squeeze in some time so that we can listen to the young voices, as Gautamji has said that it's necessary that at some point we stop talking and try to listen to the youngsters. It is with this intention that I was trying to squeeze in some time.